Hello, everyone. I'd like to start off by asking you to do something. Could you please put your hands onto your laps, palms facing up? Thank you. And then with the hand you write with, just move it into the air for me, and very slowly curl your fingers round like you're doing a very vague thumbs up. Leave your thumb pointing up. And then with your thumb, I want you to just gently push the air up and down and from left to right. Does this feel familiar? Some of you will have just put it on silent. Some of you will have put it on silent, then airplane, my people. Some of you will have put it on silent, then airplane, then turned it off, then considered hurling it under a passing juggernaut, just for good measure. No, it's not going too far, take a bow. When the smartphone was first introduced to the world in 2007, and then front-facing cameras in 2010, the world was changed forever. And to the 3% of you in the room who don't have one, congratulations, you've just learned how to stroke a baby ferret. Don't use it for evil. We check our smartphones on average every 12 minutes. 10% of us, I'm not going to ask who, have checked our phones during sex. Or as I like to call it, having sex whilst carrying out essential work on Vinted. Now, this isn't an anti-tech talk. I'm not about to recommend we go back to talking into yogurt pots tied together with string. I love my smartphone. I honestly couldn't live without it. Without my weather app, Rihanna's song Umbrella could have been written about my habit of having to dash in to accessorise every time I'm caught in town without an umbrella yet again. But I often hate how my smartphone makes me feel, because I often can't put it down. And it's not my fault that I can't put it down. And it's not your fault when you can't put yours down. They're built to be addictive. The pull to refresh feature was inspired by slot machines and casino games. We don't stand a chance. It's why the heads of Silicon Valley don't allow their own kids to have smartphones. Because there's a group of people who are even more vulnerable to the addictive elements of smartphones than we are as adults, and their children. You may know that most children, by the time they start secondary school in this country, have a smartphone. But now over half of 8 to 11-year-olds own a phone, almost always a smartphone, and a quarter of 5 to 7-year-olds. Incidences of self-harm, anxiety, depression and suicide in Gen Z, the youngest generation to be given smartphones as children, the first generation to be given smartphones as children, has risen to unprecedented levels, something which can't be attributed to any other world event. IQs are going down for the first time. In 2002, the Children's Commissioner, Rachel D'Souza, said, "I honestly think we will look back in 20 years' time and be absolutely horrified at what we allowed our children to be exposed to." Teenage years should be the years where you get to massively mess up and there shouldn't be any evidence. I was a teenager in the 90s, so I was in that lucky position. I messed up quite a lot. I made a lot of mistakes. I think my lowest point was probably when I decided to start writing love songs about boys I fancied in the hope that it would persuade them to go out with me. A kind of high-risk, high-reward strategy. This is an example of a song that I wrote about a boy called Jack March. Jack, 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 Jack March, just so it was clear who it was for. Jack, 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 Jack March, Jack March! Jack, I really love your blonde hair. It's enough to make people stare. Jack, I really hate it when you give me a glare. Why can't we be a pair? Jack, I really love your lovely mouth. I wonder, is it facing north or south? It would be sweet if it was facing south. Even better if it was facing my mouth. Subtle. Thank you. I hope he's watching. I recorded it onto cassette tape. He was at a different school from me, so my intention was to get it into his school bag. So on an inset day, my friend Joe and I got the bus to his school and started searching for his bag. We couldn't find it, and I chickened out. I think I knew in my heart that it was a bad idea. Now, if I'd owned a smartphone, there is no doubt in my mind that I would have filmed myself playing that song and WhatsApped it to him. And there is no doubt in my mind that he would have shared it with someone or more than one person. And there is no doubt in my mind that I may have received compliments for the song, but I also may have received things like, "It's not a good song, you can't sing, you're ugly, you don't deserve a boyfriend, let alone Jack." Something about it being on social media and online would have made it seem so concrete, like I thought it was the best song ever and it was going to persuade him to go out with me, when in fact it was just the best I could do that day. WhatsApp is the worst app for bullying with children. That absolutely blew my mind when I discovered it, because for us adults, WhatsApp tends to present such problems as, "Why does Rachel keep posting about the new alternate bin days?" Or, "How do I leave Mary's wedding photo group without it looking like I'm still annoyed I wasn't asked to be a bridesmaid? I'm not annoyed at all. Now how do I sell this strapless ivory dress on Vinted?" Never mind, I'll just list it the next time I'm having sex. But for kids, WhatsApp is very, very different, and they're often interacting with multiple groups at a time, so they can't really observe nuance. They're not allowed to make mistakes. They can be ejected from a group immediately. A message fired off in haste can be screenshot or even a nude photo and forwarded to hundreds of people within seconds, as could a song. The end result with Jack was the same, I imagine, as it would have been if he'd heard the song. He didn't want to go out with me, and I'm absolutely fine with that. I'm now engaged to a man who's really good at reverse parking, and I'm very happy, thank you. But I'm so glad that I got that chance to experiment and be creative without being judged. I read, I think last week, that children are spending less time writing than they have been in recent decades. And I think that isn't just because smartphones are so ubiquitous now. I think it's also this idea, peddled by social media, that everything that we do that's creative must have some immediate value, usually expressed in the form of likes. Now, there is pushback. Of course, there is pushback if we talk about delaying or banning smartphones for children. People say children have to learn how to use tech. I would say a monkey could learn how to use TikTok in 5 minutes. Ironically, there is probably a video on TikTok of exactly this. People say it's just parents making a fuss. They make a fuss about something every generation. I would probably cite the alcohol law, the seatbelt law, and the Factory Act, which stopped children from under 9 from working in factories, as examples of things which were initially opposed, but whose alternative now seems unimaginable. People talk about giving them smartphones and installing parental controls. We tried to install parental controls once on some kind of device. You end up having to enlist help from the very children that you're trying to install the controls because of. And people say, "I want to know where my kid is." I get that, and I feel the same. Luckily, there is a growing market of devices like GPS trackers that allow you to do exactly that. My argument is not against phones, and it's not against tech. When telephones first came about, they were a conduit to the world. Smartphones, on the other hand, are people's worlds. And I don't believe the companies will ever really do anything to make them less addictive, because it goes against their business model. And I don't think the online safety bill goes far enough. So if we want to do something, what can we do? Well, governments in Australia, China, France, Greece and Italy have banned smartphones in schools, and we can try and ask our government to follow suit. There are grassroots movements now in schools and communities led by organisations like Delay Smartphones and Smartphone Free Childhood. And I think one of the most important things we can do if we want to do something is reintroduce play to our kids. So when we take away smartphones, we give them unsupervised play, ideally, which involves risk. Risk is really important because it teaches us about nuance, observing other people, and most importantly, to learn from our own mistakes. I'm not going to ask how old we all are, but I'm 45. I grew up in the 90s, and I have really good memories of playing outside unsupervised as a child at an age where I think now it's less common for kids to play outside. I remember having a sword fight in a rubbish dump with 2 strip lights which smashed in the air. I remember my sister asking my mum if she could paint a tree, my mum absent-mindedly saying yes, my sister going outside and painting a whole tree red. It was there for years. I remember getting a jar of Nutella and a jar of peanut butter, scooping it out from each jar, moulding it into a poo shape, putting it in the middle of the lawn, going and getting mum and saying, next door's dog's pooed in our garden again, getting down on my hands and knees and eating it. That did involve risk, the wrong kind of risk, namely my mum nearly going into cardiac arrest. It's said that when you give them a phone, you don't give your child the world, you give the world your child. Sociologist Sherry Turkle said, "We are forever elsewhere." I say, let's have the courage to allow our children to be spontaneously here. Let's celebrate sword fights and rubbish dumps, creating the tastiest dog shit that ever existed. And let's celebrate those songs for boys that burn so brightly, then go out naturally. Thank you.